You listening? I was wrong. I was tweeting today and saw a clip of AOC saying that Sydney Sweeney ad was racist. And so I replied to it and I said, why do you care about this and ignore what matters most? Why, in all the times that you've called on Israel to stop, why have you never told Hamas to stop? Told Hamas to surrender?
So that is Chris Cuomo on his program apologizing for getting something wrong in regards to AOC. Kind of. Technically, it's an apology. It didn't feel much like one or sound much like one. He came out of it sounding more confident about himself and his position that he went into it, but he does kind of need to apologize because that the video that he retweeted was the most obvious deepfake that I've literally ever seen. The original Will Smith eating spaghetti videos were more convincing than this one of AOC. And we're gonna show it to you, but first, Cenk, both of us have been on Cuomo's show. We agree with him on some stuff, disagree on others. He's really doubling and tripling down on this whole thing with AOC.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things here. I think, look, as you guys know, I like Chris as a person, but some of his statements drive me absolutely crazy. I'm sure mine does for him. But lately, he's been going off the deep end on Israel. And I don't know what's driving it. I don't know if it's his brother's race and the fact that, 128% of his brother's donors back Israel. I don't know. I'm left to speculate. In fact, we're speculating on our live chat poll here. Why does Cuomo dislike AOC? She's too progressive. B is she's too pro-Palestine. C, I'm not sure. I kind of want to vote for all of them, so I guess I'm not sure. But I think that the Israel thing might have to do a lot with it. But so by the way, watch the show live at 6 o'clock every day, and then you get to participate through the chats, etc. Too progressive. Maybe you guys are right. I'm not sure. So okay, I'm going to come back to how absurd the deep fake was. I mean, in the deep fake, you're going to see it in a second. She talks about how people masturbate to Sydney Sweeney. How could you possibly think that was real? On the floor of the House. Okay, it's insanity, right? Yeah. And then I want to come back to Cuomo's obsession with how much he loves Israel and how Hamas made them do it. Like Israel is such tiny little victims. They keep getting bullied around by Hamas, who is such a bigger military than Israel. And that's why the Israelis have lost 61,000 people and had 25,000 of their children massacred. And that's why the Israelis are starving to death and wait, oh, it's the opposite? Can you guys tell Chris it's the opposite? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, why don't we start with a little bit of that actual deepfake?
Sydney Sweeney looks like an Aryan goddess, and the American Eagle Jeans campaign is blatant Nazi propaganda. Skinny, attractive, blonde-haired, blue-eyed cisgender women descend from the slave daddy oppressors of this nation, and any man who cranks one out while thinking about a woman like this probably hates black people, probably hates gay people, and they certainly hate the diversity of our great nation. So I say, instead of simping for the Sydneys, we should be celebrating the Shaniquas. Instead of worshiping the hot, straight blonde, what about the obese alphabet, people with blue hair? They need love too. And to all the haters who say companies that go woke, go broke, I'd rather be poor than a Nazi.
Same, but the rest of that obviously was fake. Again, the very beginning of the video, where she's talking about her looking like an Aryan goddess. If she was being critical of the video, Chris, why would she say that? Like, why would she call her a goddess? Why would she talk about her swinging fun bags on the House floor? It's the most, like her mouth was like, Conan O'Brien used to have like a still image of a celebrity and then a person would do the lips on a green screen. That's more convincing than this deep fake. And Chris Cuomo was like, I buy this. I'm running with this. And again, you can get stuff wrong. I've been fooled before too, but you just apologize. And then that's it. Maybe you promise to do better. And then that's it. Not you apologize, but actually when you think about it, I'm even more right than I thought I was. That's not how apologies work. In politics or in personal relationships, that's not gonna get you anywhere. And so he put out that video and he put a tweet with it saying nothing about Hamas or people burning Jews' cars, but Sweetie Jean's ad deserve time on floor of Congress. What happened to this party? Fight for small business, not for small culture wars. Again, this is a culture war topic, and it is 99%, as far as the media is concerned, the right wing. Do you know, Cenk, Media Matters did an analysis. Last week, Fox News used the name Sydney Sweeney 100 times more than Jeffrey Epstein. But you tell me the Democrats are the ones focused on this culture war. It's absurd. So she responded saying, this is a deep fake dude. Please use your critical thinking skills. At this point, you're just reposting Facebook memes and calling it journalism. And he responded, and this is a great first opportunity to apologize. He says, you are correct. That was a deep fake. And then in parentheses, but it really does sound like you. No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like any actual person because it's obviously a joke. It's obviously a way over the top caricature of what the person who made it thinks a leftist would say. You can't seriously watch that and think that's what AOC sounds like. Or if you do think that, that says so much more about you than it does about AOC. What do you think?
First, I just found out that Chris got a new dog and the family's super excited about it. It's Triumph to insult comic dog. He thought it was real, he brought it home. Just keeps insulting the family, it's really annoying. Okay, we're forced to make these jokes. There's nothing we can do about it. All right, here's why we're forced. Brother, first of all, it literally said in the video, this is AI parody. Okay, if you looked at the watermark. Second of all, she said the F word several times. You think she'd say that on the floor of the House? Third of all, the words didn't match her mouth at all, not even close. Okay, you guys saw some of it. You watched the whole thing and she's like, I'm not gonna imitate it, but the words in mouth doesn't match at all. Okay, then you think she's gonna say things like she's a hot straight blonde, and by the way, that her own followers are obese and have blue hair? Okay, less likely to say that, okay, if you're a progressive or a decent person. But why am I still having this conversation? She said swinging fun bags. Come on, Chris, how'd you miss that one? Okay, come on. That is a statement that is not likely to be made on the floor of the House. And AOC could live 200 lifetimes and never say that phrase. Okay?
Yeah, so. No. She's not like that's like AOC is not gonna go on the House floor and talk about someone cranking one out. That's not a thing that AOC says. That's a thing that right wingers do while hate watching AOC. That's how that works out.
Yeah, okay, and she called Sydney Sweeney a temptress and all that stuff. So let me now address the last two things, which is the Sydney Sweeney and the Chris's obsession with Israel. So Sydney Sweeney was mentioned by a couple of criticized. That ad was criticized by a couple of lefties, like 2 to 3 lefties. And at that point, when it was like a minute into the controversy, I was like, no, don't do that. It's super stupid, it's gonna annoy people, right? And then, so those 2 to 3 human beings, right, did say something. And then that was followed by 2 to 3 million right wingers going, Sydney Sweeney. I got it, guys, I got it. You found 2 to 3 people who said something comical and absurd. I agree with you that it was comical and absurd, but what's much more absurd is pretending that like 75 million Democratic voters agree with 3 randos who made a comment about that ad and how you guys can't stop talking about it. So culture wars meant to divide us. Somebody does something wrong on the right, on the left or the right, by the way, say something terrible about black people, gay people, etc. And then, well, there we go, we fight, and then for the next month, that's all we talk about, right? So I'm gonna save the Israel part. First, you wanna give us an update on that?
Yeah, on what he was actually referring to there? Yeah, so they go back and forth, but this is the incident that he was referring to when he talks about the cars being burned. So there's this thing, death to the IDF. being scrawled on a Clayton street where there was a fire that did damage 3 cars, and it's believed to be an intentional attack. The death to the IDF is written. It was an intentional attack. Thankfully, no one was injured. It was just cars. And Leo Terrell, the head of the US Department of Justice's task force to combat anti-Semitism, stated that the attack targeted an American citizen who had come back from serving in the IDF. And so he referenced it there. And then on his show, he actually talked about it a little bit more, which we can go to.
He was right. They got me. AI. It was really good, and it did seem like something she would say, but it wasn't her. So I thanked AOC for correcting me. But I then reminded her, she ignored the part of the tweet that mattered, okay? Not Sweeney, which really should have never been a thing, let's be honest. Why did AOC, the most popular Democrat in the country, powerful, reportedly ignore what I asked about calling on Hamas to surrender to end the war they started? She has never said that I could find. Think about that. She also ignored my question about saying nothing about the American IDF soldier who returned home only to have his car firebombed in America by anti-Semites. Why? Why wouldn't you say anything about that? She was also silent on the New York Times posting a picture of a Gazan boy with cerebral palsy and making him the face of starvation in Gaza.
Okay, so really fast, Cenk, just a couple things on that. First of all, him saying, yeah, they got me, but it was really good. No, it wasn't. It wasn't good, and it doesn't sound like her. You're not apologizing. You're basically saying anybody could have been fooled, and no, it's really bad that you were fooled. And then saying, why hasn't she called on Hamas to surrender? Yeah, that is what Hamas is waiting for. If only the junior congresswoman from New York had called for that, they would have done. Why didn't she talk about the fire? Because it happened like 2,000 miles from her district, and she can't comment on literally every hate crime that happens in America. This is America in 2025. There's hate crimes constantly. Okay, she's not gonna comment on literally every one. And so it's just like, he just desperately wants to make this point about everybody being mean to Israel, and he wants to tie it to someone who is notable and popular. That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah, so look, we don't know who did that crime. So they've already made a whole bio of a guy that we don't know. And so if it turns out to be what was logical, and we all think, which is an anti-Semite who, or someone who hates Israel, but did this violent act, right? Chris, do you think that's hard? Like, I think that a lot of people on the right, and apparently, Chris, they think it's hard for us to condemn that. It's not hard at all. It's so obvious. Oh, are you pro or anti blowing up a car? I'm anti blowing up a car. Is that like a bit like, do you think that we are pro blowing up a car? And do you think it's like a controversy or something? It's not a controversy. Of course you shouldn't do that, obviously. Condemning Hamas. Brother, okay, actually, before I move on to that, wait. And I don't know, maybe he could correct me or not even correct me, but tell me, because I'm not sure. Did Chris Cuomo cover on air the 6-year-old Palestinian American boy who was killed in this country because his landlord thought the Palestinians were terrorists and murdered that poor kid? Did he cover the Israeli supporter who ran over peace protesters by Columbia with his car? Did he cover the Israeli supporter who shot at 2 people in Miami thinking they looked like they were Palestinians? Turned out they were Israeli tourists. Okay, were all those covered? The thugs who attacked the peace protesters at UCLA and got away with it as the cops stood by for 3 hours straight, letting them assault the peace protesters viciously. Maybe he covered 1 or 2 of those. Did he cover all of them? Did he make a giant big deal out of it? Because if we're gonna go crime for crime, I mean, there's so many more. And then if you get into Israel, the crimes of Israel are 1,000 times. Did he cover every starving child? I mean, did he cover every child that Israel has murdered? Well, no, of course not, because that would take his entire show every day, 8 times a day, right? But no, beloved, tiny little victim Israel. Little victim Israel. I mean, they only slaughtered 61,000 Palestinians at a bare minimum. So, okay. Now on to Hamas. They always think this is such a big gotcha. Do you condemn Hamas? Yeah, I do, it's easy. Okay, check, okay. Now, let me ask you something in return. Israel has murdered 50 times the number of civilians as Hamas. and over 500 times the number of children as Hamas. So do you condemn Israel? Okay, I'll wait. I'll wait the rest of my life before any of these the lovers of Israel's genocide turn around and go, oh, you're right, Israel's 50 times a terrorist, Hamas are. What they'll do instead is, oh no, how dare you say that? Don't you know Israel is the greatest moral country in the world and our special ally? We owe them all of our money. We owe them a genocide. We owe them murdering all the Palestinian kids and us cheerleading on the side. We don't owe them anything. I don't know a country in the middle of a genocide, murdering kid after kid, now starving children to death. So do you condemn Israel, Chris Cuomo? And every Israeli supporter, do you condemn Israel? Because if you don't, you love terrorism. And that's just a stone cold fact. We're honest and principled. We condemn all the terrorists. For them, if you're a Muslim, I condemn you, terrorist Muslim. Oh, Israel murdering 50 times as many people. Bravo, here's more money. No, not mine. American taxpayers, you owe Israel. They haven't slaughtered enough Palestinian kids. They didn't intend to. That's why there's sniper shots in the head and the chest reported by doctors over and over again. That's why they dropped 2,000-pound bombs. That's why they cut off aid to the point where nearly 200 people have starved, 90 children have starved to death. How could you do an unintentional starvation campaign? But nope, beloved Israel, beloved terrorist Israel cannot be condemned. But the real problem is AOC talking about city. Wait, she didn't even do that. So you see all of these distractions to protect a government that is doing genocide, inarguable ethnic cleansing and genocide. In fact, today they announced, yeah, we're taking over all of Gaza. And by the way, here's a new prediction for you guys. When Netanyahu today, was covering it later in the show, said, oh, we're gonna take over all of Gaza. Then later, we'll give it back to the Palestinians. I guarantee you Cuomo's on the air tonight going, oh, of course they will. They're such humanitarians. After they remove all the Palestinians and they slaughter way more of them, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, then after they murder and move and ethnically cleanse all of them, then they'll give it back. Are you really gonna say they're gonna give it back? Come on, man. Go ahead, make one more ridiculous, ludicrous argument on behalf of a genocidal government, one after another, after another, after another. Don't you get tired of it? Doesn't your conscience bother you? So that's what I think. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.